Shalom, everyone. I'd like to share maybe a couple of chapters, one or two chapters, on a book that I've been reading called Hair Like Wool, Feet Like Burnt Brass, The Color of Yahusha, and Burning Truth Concerning the Messiah. And the first chapter I'm going to start with is the title, Out of Egypt Have I Called My Son. So let's go. And this is taken from Matthew 2:13. And when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise, and take the young child and his mother, and flee into Egypt, and be thou there until I bring thee word. For Herod will seek the child to destroy him. When the Messiah, the embodiment of God in the flesh, revealed himself, it is no coincidence that he was born as an Israelite from the tribe of Judah. For it is written, The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shalom come, and unto him shall the gathering be. Genesis 49:10. Or consider the word of Micah, who writes, But thou, Bethlehem, Ephrathah, though thou be little among the thousands of Judah, yet out of thee shall he come forth unto me, that is to be ruler in Israel, whose going forth have been from of old, from everlasting, according to prophecy. The Messiah had to be an Israelite from the tribe of Judah, and undoubtedly, Yahusha appeared like any typical Israelite from the tribe of Judah would, black with woolly hair. The mere notion that the nation of Israel could be anything but a black populace is erroneous for several reasons. One obvious reason is that the so-called Middle East is simply Northeast Africa. Furthermore, many of these lands in the so-called Middle East were at one time predominantly comprised of black people. For instance, many of the original Sumerians refer to themselves as a Sagiga, black-headed ones. The original Ishmaelites were also people of color. This is logical when one considers that Sarah's handmaid Hagar, who bore Ishmael, was an Egyptian, and certainly the notion of Israel, from which our Messiah derived, originally was or continued to be a black nation. It is relatively painless to support this notion through the biblical text. Throughout the Bible, the phenotypic description of Israel portrays a people of color. To substantiate this fact, we need only examine how the ancient Israelites were mistaken for Egyptians. However, due to the dominance of white supremacy, before one can address the notion of Israel being a black nation, it is first necessary to prove that the Egyptians of antiquity were also black. This is essential because under the chauvinistic dogma of white supremacy, civilization originated in Europe. Thus, according to such an ideology, it is impossible for human cultivation to emerge from the depths of black Africa, and if the many accomplishments of the ancient Egyptians in the various areas of human development could not be denied, the truth concerning their blackness could not be generally accepted by scholars. Michael 5:2 says the term Middle East was polarized about the time of Suez Canal, which created an unnatural disconnection between the continent of Africa and those nations that are almost always exclusively referred to as Arab, which further complicates the matter. Rashidi Ronoko, Introduction to the Study of African Classical Civilization, Karnak House, 1992, page 69, I use the term people of color exclusively to mean people who, within the modern American context, would be considered black or look similar to African Americans. To further complicate matters, foreign invasion is largely the reason why modern Egypt came to be considered a white Arab nation. Initially, however, Egypt was a black nation. According to the book of Genesis, the Egyptians are the descendant of Ham. We know they are Hamites. Those are the Africans. Ham is the second son of Noah and the progenitor of the dark races, but not the Negro. That's in the dictionary. I can't get that dictionary right now. But anyway, Genesis 10. Now these are the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and unto them were sons born after the flood. And the sons of Ham was Cush, and Mizraim, and Phut, and Canaan. Cush referred to the Ethiopian, Phut to the Libyans, and Canaan to the eventually land of Israel. And Mizraim to Egypt as Valni professed. Man owes his art and science and language. I would also add much of his philosophy, mythology, religion, and occultism, but in an age such as this, an epoch during which white supremacists reign, it is absolutely necessary for the dominant white power structure to deny the evidence truth of a black ancient Egyptian. It says modern Egypt today is dominant by white Arabs, not the original Kemetic people. It should be noted that the people who came to be known as Negroes were not the descendant of Ham. See Zondervan Pictorial Dictionary, page 330, and then Genesis 10, 6 and 10. Okay, so it says ancient Egyptian artifacts. I'm getting ready to show some artifacts in a minute. This is probably the most tangible method of substantiating that the ancient Egyptians were black is by merely observing Egypt relic of antiquity. So many of the artifacts of ancient Egypt tells of a past during which black people ruled on thrones in the mightiest nation in known world. For example, King Aha Minan Nomer, inaccurately referred to as King Menes, in 3100 to 3050 BC, is considered by most scholars to be the founder of the first dynasty. I have a book. It's the first kingdom, the middle kingdom, and the old kingdom, or the old kingdom, the middle, and the new kingdom. And it's an old book, and it shows all up until the new kingdom. That's when the invasions of Rome and Alexander the Great, and all the rest of them, the Hyksos and all the rest of them. That's when the looks start changing of the pharaohs. But the old kingdom and the middle kingdom, they're mostly shown black. Then you start seeing the mixture in the new kingdom. It says, according to the tradition, it reigned as emperor of Upper and Lower Egypt. When we observe the artifacts of this likeness, we find that he certainly had African features. Another shred of the archaeological evidence is found in the facial features of the Sphinx of Giza. The appearance of this massive structure tells the narrative a distant past during which black Egyptians had reached the very pinnacle of architectural mastery. The artist and archaeologist V. Van Denen, who accompanied Napoleon Bonaparte, I guess I'm pronouncing that right, in his expedition to Egypt, sketched a pre-nose-less image of the Sphinx as Giza. Upon viewing the Sphinx, Donnock declared the following. M. Constantine de Volney traveled through Syria and Egypt in the years 1783 through 1784 and also 1785. London, 1787, page 80 through 83. Though its proportions are colossal, the outline is pure and graceful. The expression of the head is mild, gracious, and tranquil. The character is African, but the mouth, the lips of which are thick, has a softness and delicacy of execution truly admirable. It is seen real life and flesh. Wow. Okay, the Greek and Roman account. Now this is a Greek and Roman account of the Egyptians. It says both Greek and Roman scholars of the antiquity almost anonymously describe the ancient Egyptians as black people. For example, the Greek historian Herodotus, 490 through 425 BC, traveled to Egypt in approximately 450 BC and may have been initiated into a mystery school in Egypt. In his arguing concerning why the Nile River did not give rise to any breeze blowing from it, Herodotus described the Egyptians as black people with kinky hair. He writes, for the people of Koshis are evidently Egyptian, and this I perceived for myself before I heard it. So he said, look, I seen this before I even heard that they were black and had kinky hair. From others. So when I had come to consider the matter, I asked them both, and the Koshans had remembrance of the Egyptian more than the Egyptians of the Koshans. But the Egyptians said they believed that the Koshans were a portion of the army of Caesarius. And that's one of the African pharaohs. That this was, I conjectured myself, not only because they are dark-skinned and have curly hair, this of itself amounts to nothing, but there are other races which are also, or which are so, but also still more, because the Koshans, Egyptians, and the Ethiopians, along of all the races, have practiced circumcision from the first. Okay, I guess here's some more proof. It says Danaan, Vavan, and Akin, author, traveled in Upper and Lower Egypt during the campaign of General Bonaparte in that country and published under his immediate portraits, Volume 1, printed by Hurd and Foreman for Samuel Campbell, 1803, page 140. See Marposo, Gaston, historian. These just some, I guess, references here. Translated as the dawn of civilization. So these are references here. Some more references. It says again, in an indirect manner, Herodotus mentioned the appearance of Egypt inhabitant. Indeed, this way has no more truth in it than the rest, alleging as it does that the Nile flows from the melting snow, whereas it flowed out of Libya, through the midst of the Ethiopians, and so comes out into Egypt, all black nations here. How then should it flow from snow when it flows from the hottest part to those which are cooler? That's his question. And indeed, most of the facts are such as to convince a man, when at least capable of reasoning about such matters, that it is not at all likely that it flows from snow. The first and greatest evidence is afforded by the wind which blows from these regions, Egypt, Ethiopia, and Libya. The second is that the land is rainless always and without frost, whereas after snow has fallen, rain must necessarily come within 5 days, so that if the snow in those parts rain, will fall there. Then he's going to say the third evidence is afforded by the people dwelling there in Egypt, Ethiopia, and Libya, who are of black color by reason of burning heat. It cannot be emphasized enough that in both of these instances in which Herodotus described the color of the ancient Egyptian, it is not intended to prove that they were indeed of a dark hue. However, he is not alone in his assertion that the Egyptians were black. The soldiers and the historian Arminius Marcellus described the Egyptian men as being mostly brown and black with a skinny and desiccated look. It says in his work, whatever that word is, can't pronounce that word. Aristotle writes that the Ethiopians and the Egyptians are both too swarthy in regards to the textures of Egyptian hair. He goes on to write, why are the Ethiopians and the Egyptians legged? Is it because the bodies of living creatures become distorted by heat, like logs of wood when they become dry? The condition of their hair supports their theory, for it is a curlier than that of other nations. Another Greek writer, Lucian, 125 AD to 180 AD, describes an Egyptian youth as not merely black. He had thick lips and his legs are too thin. His hair worn in a plait behind shows that he is not a free man. Or consider the claim of the Greek historian Diodorus Siculus of Sicily, 90 BC to 30 BC, puts forth the Ethiopian assertion that the Ethiopian is the mother of Egypt. He writes, Herodias, the historian, book 22, Ammonius Marcellius, book 22, page 16, Aristo, and then going to say some more references here. I want to go through all of that. I'm trying to get to the pictures. The Ethiopian says that the Egyptians are one of their colonies, which was brought into Egypt by Osiris. They even allege that this country was originally under water, but that the Nile, dragging much mud as it flowed from Ethiopia, had finally filled it in and made it a part of the continent. They add that from them, as from their authors and ancestors, the Egyptians get most of their laws. It is from them, the Ethiopians, that the Egyptians have learned to honor kings as gods and bury them with such pomp, sculpture, and writing. When you go back, that it is from them, the Ethiopians, that the Egyptians have learned to honor kings as gods and bury them with such pomp. Sculpture and writing were invented by the Ethiopians, but is it useless to report that here it is necessary to bear in mind that for the Ethiopians to regard Egypt as its child, both nations were believed to be of the same race. Strabo, 64/63 BC through 24 AD. The Greek geographer, philosopher, and historian also asserts in his geography that the Ethiopians and the Egyptians are indeed of the same stock. In his work, The Dawn of Civilization, Gaston Maspero, 1846 to 1916, maintained that ancient historians testified almost unanimously to the fact that the Egyptians were indeed a black African race. Again, however, to acknowledge this obvious truth concerning ancient Egypt during the era of scientific and historical racism is also a simultaneous recognition that the foundational pillar of science, medicine, philosophy, religion, and mathematics must be accredited to black Africans. Nevertheless, evidence exists that European scholars did just that. For instance, Count Constantine de Varney wrote concerning the Egyptians. Lucian Navigation, here, I guess the reference here. This is Dioris University History, Book 3. All Egyptians have a bloated face, puffed up eyes, flat nose, thick lip, in a word, the true face of the mulatto. I was tempted to attribute it to the climate, but when I visited the Sphinx, its appearance gave me the key to the riddle on seeing that head, typically Negro in all its features. I remember the remarkable passage where Herodias says, as for me, I judge the Cushians to be a colony of the Egyptians because, like them, they are black with woolly hair. When I visited the Sphinx, I should not help thinking that the figure of that monster furnished the true solution to the enigma of how the modern Egyptian came to have their mulatto appearance. In other words, the ancient Egyptians were true Negroes of the same type as all native-born Africans. That being so, we can see how their blood and mixture for several centuries with that of the Greeks and Roman must have lost the intensity of its origin color while retaining nonetheless the importance of its original mold. And to give some more some more references and stuff in red. I want to get to this. Here's the yeah. Okay, so Constantine. Okay, let's get to the. Here's the King Aha Mina Namer, King Minas, 3100 to 3050. So 3100 to 3050. Clearly black African. Pharaoh Huni from 2650 BC to 2672 BC. I have a chronicle book of the ancient pharaohs, and it's given the exact same features, pictures and statues here. So here's another. Obviously they were African. And this is the people that Israel dwell with for 400 years. So these are the people that they dwell with. These are the Hamites. That Israel, the Shemitic people, dwelled among the Hamites. This was their features. This is how they look. Okay. Then Pharaoh thy soldier, Dizer. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but anyway, it's 2670 BC. Again, the lips. You look how they cut off the nose and stuff. Boy, I tell you, can't hide the truth. You can tell by the other features, the cheekbones, and the whiteness of the even when they break off the nose, you can tell he had a large nose anytime they break them off because they leave that big space. It's the same with the lips. Pharaoh Khufu, builder of the great pyramids of Giza. Check this out, y'all. The nose, the lips, this is clearly a Ham, the descendant of Ham. These are Hamites, living in the land of Egypt during the time that Israel was there as slaves. Here's I'm trying to pronounce these names, y'all, so bear with me. Forgive me if I'm incorrect. Neheptri, Mentuhotep, Mentuhotep, the second pharaoh of the 11th dynasty and considered the first pharaoh of the Middle Kingdom. I have the book of the Middle Kingdom. I paid it's some really good books too. I mean, it shows it all. I have the Middle Kingdom. I have the Old Kingdom and the New Kingdom. So old, middle, new. Okay, so there's another pharaoh. That looked like that was kind of drawn. I have an actual statue in my book. Okay, Imhotep the third, 1843 to 1797 BC. Look at that. Broke off the nose here too. I wonder how they broke them nose off. Just like they did the Sphinx, they did the same thing. These are Africans. Black Africans. They're not white Africans. There are no such thing as white Africans. The original people are the people, are black Africans. Anyone else in the land after that was just invasions, colonization, migrations. Here's Queen Tay, 1398 BC to 1338. Okay. Here's Akhuna. I have you pronounce that, but anyways, here's the their lips. They have those Asian eyes. Afro-Asiatic. That's what you call Afro-Asiatic. Afro-Asiatic. Got the Asiatic eyes and the Afro in the lips. He had a funny made body too. He was weird looking. I have several African books showing these old pharaohs and stuff, the body where they did the structure. And I know it was just, them building the, the granite, they call it, the stones and stuff, how they made their statues and stuff. Some of the bodies look weird. Okay, this is the son of Queen Tai. Okay, 33. Okay, here is Manuki. Here he is again. I bet he was a handsome young man too. These are Africans right here. Look at the skin color. Okay. I have people in my family have this color. Like a red undertone, dark, but like a red undertone. Okay, here is some relief of Hatshepsut suit. Expedition to the land of Put-Punt. Yes, okay. Now in my book, it has a whole description, like a commentary telling about the individual and who they were the daughter of and the mother of. Now this is when it started changing. 14th century BC, daughter of Pharaoh Akhenaten, forgery of Ra-Hatet and his wife Nefri. Yeah, forgery. It's not how they look. Because if I go back, and I want to go back, but initially he didn't look nothing like this. I want to go back, but I don't want to go too far back. I want to get out of. But like I said, it's a forgery. It's a forgery. That's just wicked. Egypt as a convert for the child. Now I'm going to go ahead and probably stop here, but I just wanted to show the because I want to get into this right now. I could go, but I didn't look it over. Let me just go ahead and read some of this. It says Egypt as a covert for the child. During the reign of Herod, king of Judea, the wise men of the east came bearing news that a true king. Now this is a statue during the time. Egypt as a covert for the child. So this is where Yahusha was hidden. Where I just showed you all those black Africans and stuff. He was hid among them. So that means that he had to look like them, the color at least like them, Joseph and Mary, in order for them to blend in with the Africans, with Ham, the Hamites. They were not white. They were people of color, and all the description from those who traveled, the men that traveled there and wrote about them. Historians. I just gave you all kind of historians that's seen how the people look. They verify how they look. So let's go back here. It says, during the reign of Herod, king of Judea, the wise men of the east came bearing news that a true king would soon arrive to thwart this perceived threat to his rule. Herod enacted a genocidal program against all the Israelite males that were born within approximately 2 years of his encounter with the wise men. Matthew writes, and when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, arise and take the young child and his mother and flee into Egypt, and be thou there until I bring thee word, for Herod will seek the young child. It says the sketch of the feast of Giza before it was defaced, sketched in approximately 1798. Let's go back and look at that. This is what he's talking about right here. This one it was sketched. Okay, again, this is how the people looked when Mary and Joseph went into Egypt They were not. They were not. They were not European, y'all. They ain't look nothing like no European until they start trying to portray them as Europeans. Start redoing some of the sculptures and stuff. Go back. I'm sorry. It said there until this and be thou there until I bring thee word, for Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. When he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night and departed into Egypt, y'all. Okay, Egypt. Remember the pictures, all the pictures I showed you of the pharaohs? Remember all the historians, tons of historians that describe how the people look in Egypt during that time? Some of them didn't want to admit it, but it says, to escape the wrath of Herod, Joseph took his wife to be and the Messiah into Egypt. Why Egypt? Perhaps in Egypt, unlike a European country, the family was able to blend in with the larger black Egyptians populace. They remained there until the death of Herod, and although we have been bombarded with European images, the Messiah was not called out of Caucasus Mountain, for it is written, out of Egypt, out of Africa, have I called my son. Okay, 2. The appearance of the ancient Israelites. Okay, here we go. The appearance of the ancient Egyptians, is focal point because there are several biblical accounts of Israelites, Joseph, Moses, and Paul, being mistaken for Egyptian. This is similar to how today an Italian tourist may saunter through the streets of Marseille, unnoticed until on his quest to visit the Vixu port, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, y'all, he becomes a lost and in broken French question as local concerning the port's location. It is only by the inharmonious sound of his native tongue that the resident realized the Italian vacationer is not a Frenchman. However, despite the dacoit's fluency in French, the same resident of Marseille never mistake the Senegalese migrants for a countryman by blood. Or Senegalese migrant for a countryman by blood. Joseph and his brethren. The most striking instance of a black Israelite being mistaken for a black Egyptian concerned Joseph and his brethren. Joseph's brothers were jealous of him and consequently sold him into bondage through the plan of the Almighty God. Joseph ascended from the status of slave and prisoner to a position of power that was only rivaled by Pharaoh during the famine. When the patriarchs traveled down into Egypt to purchase corn, Joseph was unrecognized to his other brethren. Genesis 42 reads, And Joseph was put all that together. And Joseph was the governor over. He kind of mixed that together. Anyway. And Joseph was the governor over the land, and it was that sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brethren came and bowed themselves before him with their faces to the earth. And Joseph saw his brethren, and he knew them, but made himself strange unto them, and spake roughly unto them. And he said unto them, When come ye? And they said, Whence come ye? And they said, From the land of Canaan to buy food. And Joseph knew his brethren, but they knew not him. Joseph's own siblings did not recognize him, probably due to the following factor: the possible change that take place with Joseph with age. Joseph spoke to his brethren through an interpreter, the less than plausible chance of their brother ascension from bondman to an authority second only to Pharaoh. Joseph was more than likely dressed in Egyptian garb, a significant contrast to what his brethren would have more than likely done. And the most significant factor being that Egyptians and Israelites shared similar phenotypes. If the Egyptian and the Israelite patriarchs had drastically different phenotype, Joseph would have been immediately distinguished, right, by the initial gaze of his brothers. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop here, you all, because this is I'm not trying to go through the whole book. So I'm just going to go ahead and stop here at an Egyptian delivered us. So maybe I'll try picking up from here, but I don't want to read through all this, for a whole hour. I just wanted to share this interesting book. So I'm going to go ahead and stop here, and so I hope you all, picked up a lot of the historians and how they described the Egyptians back in that time. And basically, that's what I brought this lesson, just to show you that the Egyptians were Africans, black Africans. There's plenty of historians that proved it during their travel in that area. So there's just so much information and so much proof out there. So we know that we know that Egyptians were not white Caucasians from the Caucasus Mountain. They were Hamites, and their progenitor, Ham is the progenitor of the Hamites, but not the Shemite. So anyway, so I hope you all got a little, we're not so much understanding. Well, yeah, I'm understanding as far as, you hear people, especially you hear Caucasian people keep saying that Egypt was a white civilization. No, Egypt was not a white civilization. Egypt was a black civilization, and there were white historian that proved that Egypt was a black civilization. Therefore, that Egypt and Israel looked the same when it came down to color, and possibly phenotype too, especially when they've been there 430 years or so. You don't mix together with black Africans for 430 years and they come out white. It just don't happen that way. But anyways, I'm not trying to be racist or anything. But anyway, so I hope y'all enjoy the little 37-minute session that I just kind of went over. And you all have a blessed evening. Shalom.